Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shanika and today's video is going to be all things nursing in honor of National Nurses Week in the United States. It's from May 6th to May 12th and I'm going to be sharing my experience and my background as a nurse. I'm going to talk about some pros and cons of nursing, some lessons that I've learned, and how to thrive in your first 6 to 12 months of nursing. So stay tuned, and of course if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments and I'll be happy to answer. Yeah, guys, I have been in healthcare for about 12 years. I can't believe it. Starting in 2013, my first job was as a nurse attendant, which is similar to like a CNA, and it was a special opportunity that the hospital was providing for student nurses. So because I learned how to wash patients, how to make a bed, how to do vital signs in nursing school, I was able to get this job. And I would definitely recommend this to anybody who wants to become a nurse or who's in nursing school. If your time allows it, it's great to get that job because you get that hands-on experience where you learn to be comfortable around other people, right? And you learn how to be comfortable, bathing someone's body, doing vital signs and stuff like that, so that when you get your first nursing job, it's not as awkward. So I'll definitely recommend that to anyone. And yeah, so that's where I started, and that was on a transplant unit, and it was at a really great hospital. So I was very blessed to have that opportunity, and it did help me in networking to get my first job as a registered nurse once I graduated. So after 1 year in that position, I graduated in 2014 in the spring semester. So that was around May. I took my NCLEX and I passed it, and I started working in about July. And my first job was in the step down. So I worked in the cardiothoracic surgery step down unit for about 7 years. And it was a great job. I started on the night shift, and I was so blessed because I really wanted a job where the environment was healthy, meaning that, there wasn't much toxicity between coworkers and things like that. I wanted to be a part of a great institution. And things like that. So I was very blessed. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but I started out on night shifts. And let me tell you, I was always someone who liked to be in bed by 8-9 p.m. even if I wasn't sleeping. And I would be one to wake up bright and early. But when I first started my nursing career, most of the jobs were night shift, and then I went for it. I'm so glad I did, and I was able to survive and thrive working the night shift for about 4 to 5 years. So, anyone who's never worked nights, don't be afraid to do it. I'm pretty sure you could hang, do what's best for you, of course. But even if you have to do it for 1 year and then switch to day shift as soon as it becomes available or get another position, I would definitely, say you can do it. Because if I could do it, you can do it. So yeah, so I did that for some time, and it was great. I was able to, participate in some unit-based councils and activities, kind of like as extracurricular and, at work. And they do kind of expect that of you in the nursing field. I went to the day shift on the same unit. And during that time, I went to grad school. So about 2016, I started grad school, and I became a adult gerontological nurse practitioner, and I graduated in 2019. And that was, a challenging experience, like working full-time and going to school. Even though it was part-time, towards the end of the curriculum, I had to do clinical hours. So there were a period of time where like 6 days a week I was doing something. So working nights and going to clinicals. So it's like I had 2 jobs plus studying for tests and stuff like that. So it was quite stressful. Thankfully, I had the opportunity to move to the day shift and finish out, the rest of my schooling there. So after I graduated in 2019, it took me a while to get a job. I'm not even gonna lie, I wasn't all the way ready to work as a nurse practitioner when I first graduated. Just being nervous about a new role and new responsibilities and stuff like that. So by the time, the end of 2019 comes around, I was ready to get a job and I was applying. It was pretty challenging to get a job though where I was, and the pandemic hit, of course, so I continued to work in the hospital. After that, things settled down in 2021. I did a home care nurse practitioner position and it was quite interesting. A little bit stressful, but I stayed there for a couple of months and I realized it was not for me to go into people's homes. I didn't like it. You didn't know what you would expect, and some of the neighborhoods were like, made me a little bit uncomfortable. So, it's not for everybody. I know a lot of people who do, home care of some sort and they like it. Wasn't for me. And the bathroom thing as well was pretty annoying because I had to ask people to use their bathroom. Most of the patients were pretty kind. They always said yes, but it was still a little bit uncomfortable. But after that, so I did that position for a little bit. It wasn't a good fit. Then I went to do some travel nursing, which was really fun. I did work in some challenging units and it made me appreciate my unit. But it was a good experience because I've never worked at any other hospitals. So I worked in a small community hospital on the med-surg unit and a progressive care unit, and then I worked in a bigger hospital on the intermediate care unit. So it's kind of like a progressive care step down unit as well. I did one contract for 3 months and then the next one for about 4 months. And then thankfully I was able to get my position as a nurse practitioner in an outpatient urology clinic. And that was a good experience. Of course, there's some pros and cons to that, but so let's get into the pros of being a nurse. One pro is that it's a great job market. When you have this license, it's a well-respected career and you can work pretty much anywhere in the United States with your nursing license. The most you may have to do is just apply for a license in that state and just become familiar with their rules and regulation. But you can start off in New York and then say I'm going to New Mexico and next year I'm gonna work in Alaska. So I love that you have that flexibility in location. The next thing is that you can make a good living being a nurse. The pay is good, and a lot of times with healthcare institutions, there's great benefits like good retirement benefits, good healthcare coverage, tuition reimbursement, and things like that. Being a nurse, you get to build some great relationships with your coworkers and with the patients, especially if you work in an area where you're seeing the same patients pretty frequently. But those relationships are so key and they make the work day go by quickly. And you're happy being there. We spend so many hours at work, and it's a blessing where you could work at a place where there are good relationships, good teamwork, and things like that. Another pro with nursing is that it is a challenging career. So if you're someone that likes to have a good challenge, likes to grow, and likes to overcome things, nursing is a good field for you. And if you don't want, too many crazy challenges, there's different areas of nursing. So you get to choose which area is right for you. And that takes us into the next pro of nursing. You can work in so many different areas. Like you can work in the hospital. If you don't like being confined to a building for like 12 hours, if that's not your style, you could work in a clinic. If you want more flexibility, if you want to say, hey, I want to be able to run to the bank, run to the post office, then you can do home care, because in between your visits, you may have time to do this, that, and that. You can work at a medical spa. There's so many different things that you could do. You could work in a school. There's school nurses. So imagine if you got kids or something like that and you kind of want to be on their schedule, like school nursing is a great option as well. And also, if you're a person that's very like caring and compassionate, then nursing is a great place for you because you get to practice that caring, give that love that you just want to pour out of yourself. So it's a great career for that. And I have to say, you really do have to care about people and like people because in nursing, you're going to be serving people. That's the main point. So just make sure that, that's something that you could rock with. Now, some cons of nursing. Now, some of these cons may not be, a con to everyone, but one con could be working long hours. Some people work 12-hour shifts, and if they do overtime, sometimes that could be 16-hour shifts. And even if you do 12-hour shifts, if it has to be 2 or 3 days in a row, that can be a lot. It can be taxing on the body, the mind, the emotions. So that can definitely be exhausting. The next con is that, people can be people sometimes, and some patients can be rude and downright nasty. So you got to be prepared for that, not take it personal. And of course, we're not punching bags as nurses. If some patient is being disrespectful, there are proper ways to handle that and make sure that you are safe. So I just want to stress that point. But every now and again, you may deal with someone who is just really disrespectful. Some units, some institutions, there can be a toxic work culture. I've seen some of that, and that can be a big con. That can make going to work very draining. Sometimes, people can be people no matter what job that you're in, no matter what field. Sometimes people can be cliquish and stuff like that. So, it's just important to know how to navigate relationships at work and know how to choose an environment that works well for you. If an environment is not safe for whatever reason, then, have a game plan so that you could leave. The next con is that this job comes with a lot of responsibility. There's always things to learn. There's always going to be new things that you never did before. And sometimes that level of responsibility can become a heavy weight to bear. So it's just important to have the right perspective about it and just, take care of yourself and find a way how to cope and deal with that. That's healthy, in a healthy way. And the final con is that, with nursing, depending on where you work, sometimes patients can be really, really sick. And sometimes you can hear a lot of sad, stories and situations. So the emotional, it can be emotionally taxing at times. So yeah, that's something important to be aware of. And again, you can choose where you want to work, for example, you may work on an oncology floor or in an oncology clinic, and maybe you were able to deal with that for 2 years and be strong. But then if you notice this is getting to be too much, you can work somewhere else, All right, so I am gonna get into some tips on how to thrive as a new nurse, and I have these written down. So the first one is be intentional during the interview process and try to pick the best work environment for yourself. I know sometimes it's hard as a new nurse. It may be hard to get into really good institutions or things like that. So the temptation may be to just grab any job, and that may be okay. Sometimes you have to take what you can get for the first 6 months to a year, and then if it's not a good fit, you could transfer out. But while you're interviewing, try to ask lots of questions to find out about the work culture. Try to pick up on the way the manager speaks to you and speaks to other people. Maybe see if you can say hello to one of the staff members and stuff like that, to really try to get a feel of the position, because a lot of times people aren't going to just tell you outright all of the cons, because they want you to work there. So try to really discern and get a feel and ask good questions for to see what kind of work environment is this and is it right for me. And like I said, we may not always know, and sometimes you just have to take a chance at a job. And if that's the case, know that you are not stuck. Make an exit plan to go somewhere else if it's an awful place. The next tip is to seek out some mentors. It's really good if you can. Try to, stay in touch with some of your professors or clinical instructors that you were really able to bond with. That's really good to provide you with references, just to talk about, maybe planning your nursing career, to use for networking and different things like that. So stay in touch with your professors, and stay in touch with some of your classmates as well, so you guys could kind of just help each other, encourage one another. And of course, at whatever job you get, try to seek out 1 to 2 people who you feel like likes you and who kind of is showing that they want to look out for you. And sometimes that's the person who's your preceptor on the job. You guys become close and they look out for you and they teach you really well. Try to stick with that person, because they're going to look out for you and help you and advocate for you. The next thing is, don't stop learning, especially in the first 6 to 12 months of your nursing career. Study your books, review your notes. Make sure that you review hospital policy, because that's going to help you to practice in a safe way, and that's going to protect you legally as well. So make sure you review those policies so that you're practicing in a correct and safe way. Next, use your vacation time. It's so crazy. I remember a few nurses that I work with, they would have so much vacation time in the bank. And I understand some places let you save it and it can roll over, but sometimes it does expires, at least a portion of it. So use your vacation time. It's so important to rest and recharge. So make sure you use it. The next thing I have written down is find hobbies that you enjoy outside of work, and do that if you like to exercise, swim, dance, YouTube, or anything, whatever it is. Do something that, just feeds your spirit. Let's see. And be kind to yourself. Like, becoming a nurse, it's such a big learning curve after you graduate, between nursing school and your first job. It's so much to learn, and you might make mistakes, but be kind to yourself and don't give up. Whenever you're doing something new for the first time, always ask for help and guidance for like the first couple of times until you feel really comfortable. But be kind to yourself. Give yourself some time to adjust. I remember they had this thing in nursing where it's like, I forgot what it's called. It's something like you're the novice, from novice to expert. So remember, if you're a novice at something, it's gonna feel uncomfortable. So be kind to yourself, keep learning, ask for feedback, from your preceptors and those around you and things like that. And if you had to have a situation happen at work, feel free to talk to somebody to say, what could I have done better, so that you can learn and grow. Another tip for new nurses to thrive is to join a residency program. A lot of big institutions have them, and basically it offers an opportunity for mentorship. You may meet like once a month or once every couple of months, and you talk, and it's just a really great support system. And the final tip I have, which is, I kind of mentioned this before, but really give it a good 6 months to a year before you feel comfortable. And it's kind of good that you're a little uncomfortable, because it makes you, be very aware. Because like I said, all of this is new. There's things that you don't know, but just stick with it. You really gotta be brave and, seek help, but give it some time to feel more comfortable as a nurse. So I'm gonna wrap this video up by just sharing some of the personal things that I've learned by being a nurse. And one of them is that there's always gonna be new experiences in life. I remember in the earlier parts of my nursing career, I would go to work and I would be so nervous. I would get there early so I could plan, and I would be nervous. I'm like, which assignment am I gonna get today? Am I gonna get some procedure that I never did before? And then one day I had a patient who was doing who needed peritoneal dialysis, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I just wanted a more straightforward night. I don't do this often. But then I just kind of took a deep breath and I was like, remember, Shanika, in nursing, you're never gonna know everything. I remember my professors used to say that, like, you're always gonna be learning. So I said to myself, let me just be confident and go head on and then do this. And I was able to do it. So just by having that perspective, it was a smooth night, and I learned a new skill, and then I was able to practice it more, and I felt comfortable with it. And I used my resources. I had the previous nurse give me some tips about it. I reviewed the policy. I asked someone for help. The patient did it at home, so they were comfortable and just knew what to do. I did the procedure, but they weren't like stressed out or scared, so that made it really helpful. So I thought to myself, I gotta adapt that mindset for life, because there's always gonna be something to learn, something new that we're gonna experience. And as they say, if you want to grow, you got to get out your comfort zone. So anytime that I got to do something new in my life, I just breathe, go head on, and I go with confidence, I go with prayer, and I do my best. And usually it turns out good, and I get to grow and I get to enjoy something new. But if I'm too afraid of that newness, then I'll be stuck. And another thing I'm grateful to nursing for is that through my career, I felt that it helped me to grow in my leadership skills and helped me to become a stronger woman. Like, I've served as a charge nurse during my time working in the hospital, and as a charge nurse, you're in charge of the floor for the day. Like, yes, you have your nurse manager and the other nurses are there too, but you're leading that unit and the flow of patient care that day, and you have a lot of responsibility. So by having experiences like that, by having experiences where we're very short staff and I have to take care of several sick patients, being able to prioritize and delegate and ask for help and just expand my capacity and capability, I feel that nursing has allowed me to grow and become a stronger woman, and also grow in those leadership skills and abilities. And finally, another thing that nursing has helped me learn is that I really enjoy mentorship. I've had the opportunity to train new nurses and nursing students and nurse practitioner students. So I really love teaching and mentorship and just helping someone, behind me, because I remember what it was like in their position. So to be able to pay it forward and just assist and see someone grow, it's a really great feeling for me. So if you made it to the end, thank you for watching this video. I can say that it truly has been a blessing to be a nurse these past 12 years, and I want to wish all the nurses a happy Nurses Week. And again, if you have any questions, leave them below in the comments. Bye.